We're going to talk about the method of completing the square to solve a quadratic. So the first thing we need to talk about is what is a quadratic. Graphically, a quadratic is a parabola. It can open up, it can open down. It can touch the x-axis, it may not. Algebraically, we would have something in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c, or something in the form of y equals x minus h quantity squared plus k. So the bottom line is that you're going to have an x that's squared. Here, once you FOIL or multiply this out, you're going to get an x squared. So there's four methods that we have to solve quadratics. The first one is factoring or reverse FOIL. So if we had y equals x squared minus 3x minus 4, we can factor it. You guys learned the x method. We can factor it. And then we can solve it by setting each part equal to 0 and getting x equals 4 or x equals negative 1. If you're unable to factor it, then we can use the quadratic formula. X equals the opposite of b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Graphically, if you have real roots, meaning that it crosses the x-axis, then we can use the calculator to solve it. So what you would want to do is find these values, because this is the solution to a quadratic. In your calculator, after you graph it, and you're on the graph screen, you would hit second calc, which is the trace button, arrow down to number 2 or hit number 2, and it's going to ask you your left bound and your right bound. So basically you're going to narrow it down to which value you want to find, and the calculator will do that for you. The last method is called completing the square. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So flip to the next page. The first example we have is x squared plus 6x minus 17 equals 0. So what we're going to do, the first step is to move your constant term to the other side. Leave a space. So I added 17 to both sides and moved it to the right-hand side. The next step is to take your b term, or the term with your x, divide it by 2, and square it. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. 3 squared is 9. So move constant term. Take your b term, divide it by 2, and then square it. The next step is going to be to add it to both sides. So I'm going to write it as a separate line here just so that you can see the steps. But when you're working on this, you can just go back and add it into your first line. So I got an answer of 9. I'm going to add it to both sides. So add your answer to both sides. Then on your left-hand side, this will reverse FOIL or factor to the same numbers. So x plus 3, x plus 3. If you don't get the same thing, something's wrong, because that's the point of this process. On the other side, you can add your numbers together. You had 17 and 9 is 26. So we're going to rewrite this as x plus 3 quantity squared. We want to solve for x, so our next step is to take the square root of both sides. Remember that when you're solving, you get both a positive and negative root. So the square root of something squared is just the something. And on the other side, we have plus or minus the square root of 26. Now we're going to get x alone, so we're going to subtract the 3. So we get x equals negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 26. You can use the quadratic formula to check your answer. So if you take your original equation, your a, b, and c, a is 1, b is 6, c is negative 17, and put it into your quadratic formula, you should get the same answer, and that's how you can check yourself. Okay? So move constant term to the other side. B term, divide it by 2, square it. Take your answer, add it to both sides. Factor your left-hand side, combine the two numbers on your right-hand side. Take the square root, subtract or add the number that's left here, and get your final answer. Okay? So flip to the next page. Pause the video. And try the method, use the steps that you wrote down on the previous page. Try it and see if you come out with the answer. Your final answer is 2 plus or minus 2 square roots of 3. Don't forget, like square root of 12, that you finish, or you reduce it to simplest radical form, so you have to break that down to 2 square roots of 3. Okay? So that's the method of completing the square, and this is when, like stated here, the leading coefficient is 1, okay, meaning the number in front of x squared is 1. So now we're going to do the same thing, except the leading coefficient is not 1. Okay, notice the leading coefficient here is 2. So here, the first step again is still to move the constant term to the other side. The next step is to factor out the leading coefficient. Again, leave some space. Okay. Next step, take your b term, divide it by 2, and square it. Now here, you're going to add it and subtract it. So if I add 1 and I subtract 1, then I really added 0 to the same side. So that's okay. And the reason that we can't add it to the other side like we did in the other two problems is because this is inside the parentheses. So this 1 and negative 1 is really being multiplied by 2. So we have to accommodate that. Okay? So next what you're going to do is rewrite the first 3 terms and leave them in the parentheses. But I'm going to take the last term out. So I'm going to multiply this 2 by this last term, negative 1, which would be negative 2. So all I did there was take this term, distribute it, didn't distribute to everything else, just to this term, and brought it out of the parentheses. Now I can add it to the other side. So see how you couldn't add it at first, because if you had added it at first it would have only been a 1, but it's not really a 1, it's a 2. Then the rest of the process is the same. We're going to factor this. Now we need to divide by the 2 to get this alone. Take the square root of both sides. Remember that it's positive and negative. And add the 1. We have to rationalize denominators. We don't leave radicals in denominators, so that's why I wrote it separately as square root of 7 over square root of 2. So I'm going to multiply to rationalize. I'm going to multiply both the top and the bottom by square root of 2. So I really multiplied it by 1, so that's okay. So I get square root 7 times square root 2, which is square root 14. Square root of 2 times square root of 2 is just 2. And that's your final answer. Okay? So move the constant term. Factor out the leading coefficient. Take your b term, divide it by 2, square it, get your answer, add it, subtract it. Move the subtraction term outside of the parentheses. Finish doing the algebra to solve. Okay, next page. We're going to do the same thing. I'm going to pause the video, see if you can do it by yourself, and then put the video back on and see if your answer agrees with mine. Okay, so I moved the 2 to the right-hand side, factored out the 3 of the first 2 terms, took my b term, divided by 2 and squared it, got 1, added it and subtracted it, distributed the 3 to just the negative 1. I also factored this at the same time. You should probably have more steps, especially when you're first starting. Add the 3 to the other side. Finish the algebra. Divide by 3. Take the square root. Subtract the 1. Rationalize the denominator. So you should get negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 15 over 3. Last page. So here's an example of a problem that could show up and doesn't quite come out to say using the method of completing the square to solve. You're given a circle in this form. You need to know where the center is. So you need it in x minus h quantity squared plus y minus k quantity squared equals r squared, because hk is the center and r is the radius. So that's why it's important to learn this. So what you're going to do is get your x terms alone and then your y terms alone. Basically what we're going to do is use completing the square twice within the same problem. So we have x squared minus 16x, and I'm just using space just so that we have space to work, not because you actually need it in between. Y squared plus 6y here, and then the 53 I'm bringing to the other side. So now do the x squared minus 16x and do the completing of the square, kind of ignoring the rest of it. Okay, so we're ignoring the y's right at the moment. Take your b term, divide it by 2, and square it. So we get 16 divided by 2, which is 8. 8 squared is 64. Add it to this side. Leading coefficient was 1, so I can just add it to the other side. Do the same thing with the y's, ignoring the x's. B term, divided by 2 and square it. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 3 squared is 9. Add it to this side. Add it to the other side. Look at just the x's and factor that. X minus 8, x minus 8. There should be a plus here. Do the same thing here. Y plus 3, y plus 3. Add up your numbers. You have negative 53 plus 64 plus 9. You should get 20. So the center of the circle, remember it's opposite signs, the center is 8, -3. The radius is square root of 20, because remember this is the radius squared. In simplest radical form, that's 2 square roots of 5. Okay? So x's together, y's together, do 2 parts of completing the square. Remember to add it to the other side. If you ended up with a negative number over here, total, when you got all done, instead of 20, if you had a negative number, something's wrong, because a circle can't have a negative radius. You can have negative numbers in quadratics in general, but not when you're solving a circle. Okay? So you get it into this form here. Opposite signs, don't forget that. Change the sign, negative to positive, positive to negative. That's the center of your circle. Radius is the square root of the number over here. Put it in simplest radical form. Okay? So that's all there is to completing the square. You definitely want to practice it a few times so that you get really good at it. Take care.